I was in 770.
Okay, so we're going to learn today, Mirza Hashem, the
I'm standing
Maimer.
next to yourself, Friedman.
Yeah,
Lying.
Zog, I'll put you so. So we're going to learn today the Maimer, Lovin Inyan Simchas Torah, Tavshin Lamed Ches. It's a unique Maimer in the sense that it's a Simchas Torah Maimer. It was the year that Debba had the heart attack. So this is 48 hours after the heart attack. And Debba couldn't say the Maimer during Yom Tif because he was in his room, couldn't go down. After Yom Tif, they made the mic. They hooked it up to the speakers in 770, and Debba starts the Sikha saying that since misiba due to a siba, you can't be in the same room. So, but it's a kid of it's a richuk begashmis, yeah, it's a richuk begashmis, not beruchnius. And Moshe over here says that he remembers being there. So Moshe was there when they said when David said Shmeimer, and standing next to Rabbi Sol Friedman. And Rabbi Sol Friedman was crying because of the matzav then. About Kopanim, to say in a word what hopefully we'll get out of the Maimer, I'll say it in a kind of a joke that I heard B'Shem Josh Gordon. So, and it's not a joke; it's more of an insight. He says that sometimes there's three levels of Meshuggahim. There's a Meshuggah that you see, and the second you see him, you know the guy's nuts. That's one Meshuggah. And then there's another Meshuggah that you can't tell when you look at him, when you meet him, you can't tell that he's a Meshuggah, but you talk to him for a few short minutes, and you can tell already that there's something off with the guy. But then there's a Meshuggah who's so good at his trade that you could sit with him in a meeting and do the whole meeting with him, and you can't tell that he's crazy. But when he walks out the door, the way he closes the door, you can tell, okay, there's something wrong with this guy. The vart is that he's putting on a performance the whole time, and he didn't realize that he has to continue the performance until the door closes. He figured, that the performance is only necessary. He's holding it together. He's keeping his craziness under wraps, and he thought he's done with his job. So this Maimer, the ending of this Maimer is to tell us how to, so to speak, close the door on Tishrei, on Simchas Torah, to say, how do you walk out of this meeting? We never close the door out, like we'll soon see. But how do you close the door on Simchas Torah and continue with Tishrei and with Simchas Torah the entire year? That's what this Maimer hopefully will teach us. So we're going to start. Lahavin in Simchas Torah, and we're going to try to finish the whole Maimer today because that's what the schedule calls for. Lahavin in Simchas Torah. What's the meaning of Simchas Torah? The Yadu Adit Bezem Sha'if and Simchas Torah Shalakim Sefer Torah Kfishi Krucho Mechusa B'Mapo Meraknanima. It's known the question, the point that's made about Simchas Torah, that the way we rejoice on Simchas Torah is that you take a Sefer Torah, not open, closed, and cover it up with its mantle, and you dance with it. Why is this strange? Because the Dima Yes Shabbatei Ksib Ki Chachmatzchem U'Binaschem. The meaning of Torah is Chachma, is study, is wisdom. When we come to rejoice with the Torah, whose Inyan is an Inyan of study and understanding, we do the Simcha Leil De Limut, not by learning the Iyun and deep contemplation in Torah. Kimal De Rikut Dafka. We dance with the Torah. Shalachein Simcha the Simchas Torah Eitzel Kol Yisrael, because the way that we dance, that we celebrate the Torah, is by dancing with the Torah and not through in-depth study. So therefore, the joy of Simchas Torah is by all Yidden Gam Eitzel Pshutim B'Yesus Shein Shayachim La'Saga V'Avana, including those who are very simple Yidden and aren't shaykh to understanding the Torah. If you say to Mizu, and there's an interesting quality to Simchas Torah that you should see b'muchash. Shebe'es Simcha v'rikudim dehakafes, during the time of rejoicing and dancing in the hakafes to Simchas Torah, and imshachim ben zugezogen gam ke'elu shebeshar yimei hashana ein hakesher v'esachtus shalem im inyan Torah k'mesherim b'muchash. The people who are drawn to it are also those types of Yidden who, during the entire year, you don't see so much their connection and their oneness with the Inyanim of Torah as you see tangibly. I can't say this with responsibility, but I believe with Achrayas, but I believe that by the Blavik in Yekaterinoslav, Simchas Torah was a major event, and it was done outside, and all of the Yidden who were in university and were far from Yiddishkeit would join. So
that's why
you saw such a thing, yeah? Yeah. The Indians that and this idea that the Simchas Torah is by all Yid, and not just by those who are Shaykh to Havana V'Asagim. Mispate Gam Bezeh Shemiraktinim Sefer Torah Shebichsav Davka. Also with this that we dance with the Sefer Torah Davka the Torah Shebichsav. What's the significance of this that we?
Not with a Gemara.
With the Gemara, with the Inyan of Torah Shabbat, everyone's going to explain. What's the significance of this? Because when it comes to Torah Shebichsav, Shafilu Zeh Shelo Yoda Mai Kamer Mevarich Bechas Torah K'Shekere B'Torah Shebichsav. Limit the Torah, you have to understand what you're saying. If you don't, at a minimum, you have to at least understand Pirush HaMilos, even if you don't understand the Inyan that you're learning. But that's only going to get to Torah Shabbat Peh. When it comes to Torah Shebichsav, even if you don't understand what you're saying, you're still Yetze, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Ad Kedei Kach, that you make the bracha. You make the bracha on the study of Torah, even if you don't understand what's going on when you learn Torah Shebichsav. Since this, that you make a bracha on Birchas Torah, it's not because you decided that this is something that makes sense. So it's because Torah told you. And Torah is Torah's emes. So it's a pashut zach that when anybody learns Torah Shebichsav, even a Yid who's not shaykh to understanding, even Torah Shebichsav he can't understand. The Metzius is as follows: Shegam Zeh Shelo Yoda Mai Ka'amar Mamshich Ein Sof. When he reads Torah Shebichsav, he's Mamshich Ein Sof. And even more than that, about Atzmus and Mohus, Neisna Torah, about Torah Shelemet. He's Mamshich even the Atzmus and the Mohus of Neisna Torah in the Torah that he learns. And that's why before he reads in the Torah Shebichsav, he says Baruch Atah Hashem, which is the idea of being Mamshich Atah Atzmus Ein Sof. Neisna Torah, being Mamshich the Eibishter into Torah through the reading of this simple Yid doesn't even understand it. And this is it symbolizes how the idea of Simchas Torah is shaykh to every single Yid. Because in Simchas Torah we dance with the Sefer Torah, which is Torah Shebichsav, which is shaykh to every single Yid. It's also known the question why we celebrate Simchas Torah in Shmini Atzeres. When should we celebrate the Torah? The day that we receive the Torah. Instead, we celebrate Simchas Torah, the joy of the Torah, the rejoicing with the Torah. We do it on Shmini Atzeres. What's the shaykhus of Shmini Atzeres to rejoicing with the Torah? Taka now al pi minhag, we finished the whole Seder HaParshas on Shmini Atzeres. But l'chora, this is an inyan that came later. This is not an essential connection, you would think. It's a separate parsha, not for now. But l'chora, when is there a teichendike connection between a day in the year and Simchas Torah and Torah, which is there not because of circumstance, but because that day is connected to Torah? L'chora is the day of Shavuos, not the day of Shmini Atzeres. So what's episode did it come out that we celebrate and we rejoice with the Torah? Dafkan Simchas Torah. Umuva habdir bezaver geshmak medrash. Tzemach Tzedek brings down to answer this question why we dafka rejoice on Shmini Atzeres. That Tzemach Tzedek brings a medrash al pi madeisav a medrash reuya ha'isah hatzeres shel chag shtei recheka 50 yom keneged hatzeres shel Pesach. It's an interesting concept. I never came across it before. But Shavuos, there are two Yom Tovim that are called Atzeres. Shavuos is called Chag Atzeres. It's called Atzeres. And Shmini Atzeres is also, of course, called Shmini Atzeres. And the Medrash over here says, makes a cash between them. They're both called Atzeres because they both are similar in a way. And the Medrash says that really, just like Atzeres of Pesach, the Atzeres which follows Pesach, which is Shavuos, is 50 days after Shavuos, so too the Atzeres which follows Sukkot should have also been 50 days after Sukkot. So why then is the Atzeres which follows Sukkot the day right after Sukkot, immediately following Sukkot? When it comes to that Atzeres that follows, that's connected to Sukkot, since the time of year is when the seasons change from summer to winter, and by the time 50 days pass, it's already going to be deep into winter. So these days of the year, this time of the year, doesn't allow for the Yidden to leave Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash and to come back again for Shmini Atzeres 50 days later. And that's why it's done immediately the day after. And the Medrash brings an example, a mashal l'ma davar deimah, l'melech shayu lo banes harbit. It's a mashal to a king who had many daughters. Mehen nesuis l'makim karev, mehen nesuis l'makim rachik. Some of the daughters were married to people and lived to people who came from distant places, who lived nearby. And some of them were married to people who lived in distant places, and that's where they lived. Yom echad came skakum in ein tag bo kulam lishos shlomo melech aviyam all of the daughters, either ones from a close place, either ones from a distant place, came to pay a visit to their father, the king. Amar HaMelech, so the king says to himself, those of my daughters who are married to people who live in a place that's near to here, they have the ability, they'll have the opportunity to go home and to come back for another day. However, those who are married to people who live in distant places, they won't have the opportunity to go and to come back. So therefore, let me take this opportunity, let me grab the opportunity while I have it. Once they're all here with me, let's make one Yom Tiv together, and I will rejoice and I will be happy with my daughters. So that's what the Eibishter says, and the Medrash concludes the mashal. Kach atzeres shel Pesach. When it comes to that says which follows Pesach, in other words, Shavuos, which follows Pesach, since the Yidden are now going with the seasons from winter to summer, the Eibishter says the roads will be passable and they'll have an opportunity to leave Yerushalayim and to come back for Shavuos. But when it comes to Shalchag, when it comes to that Atzeres of Sukkot, which is Shmini Atzeres, since the Yidden are going now from summer to winter, the roads won't be passable. They won't be able to come back 50 days later. So now they're all here. They're already here for Sukkot. Let me make a Yom Tov for them. Now that they're all here, let us all together make one Yom Tov, and we will all rejoice, and we will all be happy together. So this is the medrash that the Tzemach Tzedek brings, and with this, the Tzemach Tzedek explains why Simchas Torah is on Shmini Atzeres. And this is the reason why Simchas Torah is dafkan Shmini Atzeres. It says there was one day that they all came to the king, and Tzemach Tzedek explains this that Madreg of Bnei Tzin, and this Madreg of Bnei Shalom, to pay a visit to the king of their father. The Yom Echad, what's the Yom Echad Bashana? That's Yom Kippurim. After this Yom Echad passes, the king says, wait a second, I don't want to let them go. Let's make one day of Yom Tiv, and we will all celebrate together. And it says the Tzemach Tzedek, that's the day of Simchas Torah, Shmini Atzeres, which was established to be celebrated on the day of Shmini Atzeres, which this is the day, like the Medrash says, that the king said, let us all be scribes. And Sayim Kippur and Say Shmini Atzeres with the title of Chad. It's a Yom Echad. It's a day of oneness, like we will see weiter in the Maimer. So the Tzemach Tzedek's explanation of why Simchas Torah is Dafke on Shmini Atzeres is because since all of the Yidden are now by the king, they're all by the king, Yom Kippur. All of the Yidden came to the king on Yom Kippur. So you're all here, says the Melech. Let's make a day of happiness, of rejoicing, and that's the day of Simchas Torah, which is on this special day of Shmini, which was established to be on the special day of Shmini Atzeres. So what's the connection over here? What's this Inyan? The Dafka through Yom Kippur, you continue, you move on to Simchas Torah, and that there's a connection between that Simchas Torah is a hemshech of Yom Kippur. So the Rebbe explains that as follows: the Yuvan Zal Pimashin Ispailel, which the Maimer that Rebbe said prior to this one, which I didn't see inside. So the first Inyan of Shefer, I don't quite understand fully, but we'll read it the way the Rebbe says it. The kids are over here. Shekol Hamoedim Dechedesh Tishrei Mevchina Shel Achas. All of the Yomim Tovim of Tishrei are in the Eifin of Achas, and the Rebbe enumerates them, starts from the beginning and ends at the end. When it comes to the day of Rosh Hashanah, Chazal say that the mitzvah of the day, Rosh Hashanah hasn't many things, but what's the mitzvah of the day? It's the mitzvah of Shefer. Then in Shulchan Aruch it says that if there's a Yid who knows that they're in his place, in one city, in one town, there won't be a minyan, or there might be a minyan, but there'll for sure be Shefer. And in another place, he's sure that there's going to be a minyan, but he's not sure. There's a suffix. There may be Shefer, there may not be Shefer. So Shulchan Aruch says, Paskins, he should stay, he should go to the town where he'll hear Shefer. So even though in Rosh Hashanah there's a lot of things, Tamlichuni Aleichem, and there's the Melechel Kolan B'chulu, and the long davening like the Rambam brings. Nevertheless, the mitzvah of the day is in Shefer. I know the Zem, what distinguishes Rosh Hashanah and sets it and makes it unique from all of the other Yomim Tovim, who be mitzvah achas, it's an ein mitzvah Shefer, the mitzvah of Shefer. So and this mitzvah of Shefer is a nekudah of echad, is a nekudah of one thing. Like I said, Rebbe must have explained it in the previous Bible, which I didn't look in, so I can't try to add words of explanation, but it's one mitzvah, and therefore it's an Inyan of Achdus. When mitzvah zugufa, when it comes to this mitzvah of Shefer itself, that this mitzvah has in it the quality also that it's a Nakud of Achdus that's beyond reason. Reason is already starting to get into details on Pratim. It's a Gzeres HaKosav, which is Inyan of Achdus. It's the simple, it's the Ratz of the Melech. No, that Shefer, the reason for Shefer, we don't know. It comes from a place that's higher than reasons. It's the Ratzin, it's a Gzeres HaKosav. In other words, it's the Ratzin, which is Inyan of Achdus always, compared to Seichel, which is Inyan of Pratim. So Shefer itself is a mitzvah of Achdus. Even though the mitzvah of Shefer hints to very high things in the Inyan of Tshuva, like the Rambam explains by Riches Mikom, nevertheless, still in the end of the day, in Yanu Gzeres HaKosav L'mayla Mitam. The mitzvah of Shefer is a Gzeres HaKosav L'mayla Mitam. It's also put in other places that it's a Kil Pashut. Yeah, it's from a deeper place in the heart than reasons. And there's also when it comes to Yom Kippur, which is the Sima Say Samash Ben Rosh Hashanah Kipurim. In other words, it's really a continuation of Rosh Hashanah. It's all in this L'chura there is hinting what Deb explains in other Mamorim, that all of the Yom Tovim of Tishrei Avim is one thing. It's one long Hamshchatzin. The whole Tishrei is in of Achdus. So Yom Kippur, which is the Sima of Aseret Yom Tshuva, which is a continuation of Rosh Hashanah, Shehi B'china Achas Tekol Gimel B'chinas Te'ilim Shana Nefesh, which Yom Kippur is the Nekuda of Achdus in all of the three basic parameters of reality, which is Elam, space, Shana, which is time. Yeah, he's going to get to it. But I just want to point out that these words, Elam, Shana, Nefesh, that really takes this apart in a different time that I learned just this year. But it's Elam, Shana, Nefesh says the whole Sefer Yetzirah is around is miyusad on three ideas. Elam, Shana, Nefesh. Elam is Makom Gashmi, Shana is time, and Nefesh is the soul of things, the life of things. So in all b'chinas of how you would define reality, Yom Kippur has in it the kuda achas of all of these. It's the achas be'elam, it's the achas be'shana, and it's the achas be'nefesh. And now Rebbe is going to explain each one. Rebbe says the elam shana nefesh, and this in the other matter is the shetevis of makes up Ashan, which is the Ashan of the Keteiris in Yom Kippur, which is the Aveda Ikris of Yom Kippur.
How many have on the Zoom? How many people? Like in the
Good. Sehr gut. The unique Aveda of Yom Kippur, the Kedush HaKadoshim, which Kedush HaKadoshim is Bechina Achas the Elam, is the place of Achdus, of Achas. It's the unique place where you have the greatest Gili of Kedusha in space. Right, the Kedush HaKadoshim is a place. It's a space in the world, and a space that's Achas, that's one with the Eibishter. And you're not allowed to go into it because of its Heiligkeit. It's a Mokim Achas, it's Lamayla from Pratim. And then you have, and when does the Kohen Gadol do this? It's called B'Shem Achas B'Shana. The Achas B'Shana, the Kohen Gadol will go into the Yom Kippurim, into the Kedush HaKadoshim. So it's the time of oneness in the whole year. It's the holiest time of the whole year, and it's a point in the year which is Achas, which is Lamayla Meis Chalkas. B'chinas Achas T'Shana's man. The Nasas Holiday Kohen Gadol, and it's done through one and only one person. But still, it's done through one Yid, which this expresses the idea of Achas, of Achdus. He represents with him, and he brings with him all of the Chsiv which can get to Aaron, to the Kohen Gadol, or specifically the Pasuk was talking about Aaron Kohen. Vayavdil Aaron Lakdisha Kedush HaKadosh, and the Moshe Rabbeinu separated Aaron, so he was now one. He was unique and one amongst the Yidden to be the holiest of the holy. And that's B'china Achas the Nefesh, that's the B'china of Achas and Nefesh. So you see clearly, this is already easier for us to see and understand the idea that Yom Kippur is the idea of Achas. So too, Sukkot is also the Yom Tov of Sukkot, the third Yom Tov of Tishrei is also the idea of Achas. Where do we see this? This one is easy. Which the Inyan of Sukkah, which the idea of Sukkah is connected to every moment of Sukkot. It starts there's no moment in the Yom Tov of Sukkot that's not connected to a Sukkah. Because from the second that Sukkot starts until the second Sukkah goes, the Adiras Kvav Did has to be in the Sukkah. So Mudgash, so the entire Sukkot is Mudgash Inyan Ha'achdus. We emphasize the idea of the one Shechin Achas to Kol Yisrael, K'may Razal, like Chazal say about a Sukkah, that in truth, the Yidden are truly worthy. In other words, that's the emes of the Yidden, that they should all sit by Achdus, all of them together in one Sukkah. in the Eifen of Achtus. We also see this in the Good of Achtus with the other mitzvah of Sukkot, which is mitzvahs netilas daled minim shenyanu lam shechamakim to sukkachas b'pnimis, which in pnimis and it's explained that the idea of netilas daled minim is to be mamshich the achtos of the sukkah into a pnimis, and that's why it's a hiddur to bench lulav and esek dafka in the sukkah. But even not only b'pnimis, you could also see benigla shevakol echad midaled minim elu, and every single one of these daled minim nikir umutkash inin ha'achtos. You could tell, you could recognize, and it has emphasized within it the idea of achtos. Ubifrat ba'eseg, and more so than in all the other ones, it's emphasized in the esrig species. Shaboy mudgish in an achtos oides. Shalachen beseder hadal v'inu shebekosov, and since the esrig emphasizes this idea of achtos more than in all the others, so therefore when the Torah enumerates them, shagam seder v'Torah, which even the order in which Torah mentions things, that itself is Torah. So the first one that's mentioned is the esrig. Why? Because that's the one that emphasizes the most the idea of achtus. The zemasha esrig nikra because of shem priyetz. He's going to say.
Oh.
The zemasha esrig nikra because of shem priyetz hadar. So the literal translation that of the pasuk's description of the esrig, it doesn't say esrig, right? But the description is priyetz hadar. How do you say hadar in English? A beautiful fruit. Let's just call it beautiful. But how does the Gemara teach it? That hadar is melashing dar, melashing something which lives. Well, if you should dar be ilane mishana l'shana, you see something unique about the esrik, that it lives in its tree from year to year. You don't have to cut it after the first year; it stays fresh. Not only, so Leb explains.
I knew all the 4 seasons.
I was going to say now. First of all, it tolerates all the 4 seasons, unlike other fruits, which you leave it on the tree, they just wilt away. So it tolerates all 4 seasons of the year. Va'ad, and much more than that, it doesn't only tolerate all of the climates, all of the seasons. Elahu gadol mehem. Each season it helps it grow. So it can take in all of the inyanim of chilukim, of separation, and turn them all into one inyan. It all becomes one inyan, that the esrik takes them all in and grows from all of them together. And this idea of achtus, which is specifically seen in the esrik, which is obviously seen in the esrik, is nimshach also nimshach gamzeh b'shana gimel minim. It's nimshach also into the other 3 kinds that we take on sukkahs, that we shake on sukkahs. Shalchein in the hadar shebegimel minim l'meidim esrik. Therefore, in Shulchan Aruch it says that all of the lulav and the hadassim and even the aravis should be mehudadik. And where do we learn it from? We learn it from the esrik. So the esrik is mamshich l'shinin of hadar, which the way the Gemara teaches is hadar be'ilane, that it's ma'achid. It unifies all of the 4 seasons. It brings it all also into the other 3 kinds. So the idea of daled minim, which is the second mitzvah of Sukkot, is also the idea of achdos. In addition to this, that each one of the 4 species individually shows on achdus, like we just finished explaining. The way we take the daled minim is to bring them all together. Shemayim, which, like it's famously known, that bringing together these daled minim is the idea of here. Shemayim al daled asugim shebnei Yisrael, which the 4 minim, each one of them symbolizes, represents another type of yid. Sheyiyu v'yeyasu kulam aguda achas lasas tzoncha b'leivav shalem, that they should be and become all of them together one bundle. And how is their true unity by yidden? That when they serve the Eibishter with one heart. Okay, so this is the hakdama to the beer of why Simchas Torah follows Yom Kippur. Okay, that first of all you should know that the whole idea of Tishrei is the idea of Achdus. Sign Rosh Hashanah, sign Yom Kippur, sign Sukkot. It's all an idea of Achdus. And now the Rebbe is gonna continue with this idea that we just brought out, that the daled minim is the idea of Achdus between all Yidden, to explain. To further explain this inyan until we could arrive at an answer. In order that we should be able to have this last nekuda that we just finished bringing out in Achdus, which is that we take all of the daled minim and we use them together. So in order that this should be able to be accomplished, and that it should have staying power, that it should remain so the true Achdus amongst all of the Yidden comes after when a Yid reaches the Madrega and does the Aveda of Tshuva. And this the Rebbe is going to explain. The Inyan HaTshuva hu l'mayla mihischalkus. The Inyan of Tshuva is beyond details. Shalachain, which therefore the nature of tshuva is yibashayta chado b'riga chado. The nature of tshuva is that it happens in one moment. That and David doesn't go so much into a beat over here, but this is something that's explained in many places in Chassidus. That basically tshuva is when in the details the person messed up. In all of the obligations that he has to have, and all of the separate things that a yid does. A yid has to daven, a yid has to learn, a yid has to have obviously soul, has to give tzedakah, has to make a deal with the. There's a lot of details that a yid has to do. He has to have children, he has to educate his children, he has to make a bracha, learn Torah, all of these details that a yid has to do, and he messed up in them. Yeah, now he has to do tshuva on it. The nekuda of tshuva is where the yid reaches to a deeper place inside him, which over here it's beyond those details. And over here there's just one nekuda. There's just one nekuda that he's a yid, and he reveals this nekuda that he's a yid, and then that goes and fixes all of the details of his life, because from where do all of those details really come from? They originate in this one place within the yid's heart, within the yid's nefesh. So the idea of tshuva is not that this a long process. Good, it's we're not going to get now into the whole chakir over here. Yeah, saying it's a long sugya. We say we say that tshuva is the idea, even of dilug. We say that there's a long aveda of tshuva, but
I'm supposed to make that decision.
Once you have this hazaza atzmi, what's called in Chassidus, once you make that decision, then to polish and to rehabituate all of the day-to-day anhaga accordance with this tshuva, that's a process that takes time. But the pnimius of it, the emes of it, is a switch that a person makes, and that's in 1 second, and that's in 1 second. So tshuva is l'mayla mi'yischalkus.
Looking you saw the white kid, the winner, Hegel Menachem video from the bringen in Borkman. So it said as a race in Blote, you don't come to the top of the hill, and now you keep at least a race in Blote. You know
it's tshuva, it's tshuva.
It's
tshuva is a race from Blote.
There's a marshal, a story. Then
it's tshuva is a race from Blote, and that's in 1 second. Dezeo, I have to sheben luchas. Yeah. Dezeo, I have to sheben luchas shenis in naterim mitzad atzmo, the luchas ashnis in Torah al dei tshuva. And this is why we see a difference between the first luchas, which the first luchas is the Inyan of Torah, to the second luchas, which is the Inyan of Torah, which comes through tshuva. In order to receive the first luchas, Moshe Rabbeinu had to spend 40 days on Har Sinai. And this was already after, and in addition to the 7 days that they to the 7 weeks that were full of aveda, of reaching towards this idea of Matan Torah. So there was a whole process of preparation to reach the level of Torah. That was only in the first luchas. Which the luchas hashnius came through tshuva, so it's Torah through tshuva. The third time, the third Arba'im Yom, and the final one, which was before Moshe Rabbeinu received the second luchas, that was be'ikr to bring about that the Eibishter should be meichel and take back the Yidden, but simcha b'leiv shalom, right? Because the 40 in the middle was at the end of that 40 day period. It wasn't the Eibishter was meichel Yidden, well, it wasn't the simcha b'leiv shalom. So the 40 days, the final 40 days, which ended on Yom Kippur, that Moshe Rabbeinu was in Har Sinai, was not as a preparation to receive the Torah. It was just to reach this one point of tshuva, of where the Eibishter accepts the Yidden, and then once that happened, instantly the Yidden were already ready to get the Torah in an instant. Because once tshuva is done, then everything follows immediately. So tshuva, full tshuva, b'simcha b'leiv shalom, was accomplished at the end of the 40 days on Yom Kippur, and then instantly, immediately, the Yidden received the luchas. This idea that you see that tshuva can occur and does occur. That's the nature of tshuva, that it occurs in one moment. This brings out that the idea of tshuva is beyond limits and it's beyond limitation and boundary. Okay, it would be nice to explain it, but and the pashtus thing is that the whole idea of tshuva is that somebody finds himself stuck somewhere. He's stuck with his upbringing. He's stuck with his bad habits that he picked up. He's stuck with his circumstances in life currently. He's stuck. And with tshuva, suddenly he tears himself out of all that, and he's no longer bound by the limitations of his natural abilities, by the limitations of his upbringing, by the limitations of his surroundings, and he puts himself into a new matzav. So tshuva is beyond, and he could reach beyond. There's no limit to how far he can reach. It's the idea of like Yetzias Mitzrayim, Areiskin von alle Mitzrayim v'Agbolos. So why? Because tshuva, that's the definition of tshuva, where somebody reaches to this deep place within himself that he's not defined by any of his external qualities. If he's defined by his external qualities, so then his upbringing has a say, and his revealed abilities have a say, and his sviva has a say. But if you can reach this deep place of achdus, where it's an essential thing, the essence of the yid, there's no limitations. There's nothing that could hold him back. There's no reason why he can't be connected fully and serving the Eibishter every moment of the day to the fullest of the opportunities that the Eibishter gives him. So tshuva, when a yid serves the Eibishter in a tnu of tshuva, it's beyond limitation. Because true tshuva, when a yid does true tshuva, the emes of tshuva, so it touches until the pnimius and the essence of his nefesh. And the pnimius of the essence of his nefesh is l'mayla mi'yischalkus, and this is b'china achas. This is the b'china achas b'shayta chado b'riga chado the nefesh of the yid, of the person. Now we're talking about the personal person of an individual's nefesh. And this is why, following Yom Kippur, we come to Sukkot when we take together all of the Daled Minim and we make from them an Aguda Achas. And like we see, the process starts already from before, from Rosh Hashanah, even before Rosh Hashanah, like we learned in the Maimon just before this Rosh Hashanah. You take all of the different types of Yiddim from the highest levels to the lowest levels, and they all come together. And that's the time they come together. They all stand upright. And like the Lashon in Nach, I didn't have a chance to look it up, but they stand up, they're standing like kings. What's the shot? They're standing like kings. This is a beautiful word over here. The Yidden become kings, and they have a balabatischkeit. No, they run the world.
Of what the protest was, no king.
No kings. So the Sitra Achre.
The Sitra Achre mamish. We're coming right after Sitra Achre to be Melech.
And not sound like you'll see Melech
Allah
Elam.
And they're coming saying, "Name, mamish, you see the pull. It's unbelievable." Mention that people don't hear. They don't hear the depth.
Yeah.
What's going on?
But the pnimius, Mazlayo Chazi, the pnimius of the Sitra Achre.
It's also the Inyan Simchas
saying what there's the famous, right? That's what I'm saying. That there's the famous story with the Alter Rebbe, where two Chassidim came to him. They weren't Chassidim. They were told to go and ask a bracha about the Alter Rebbe. They had a court case, some libel that their employees made of them. I think that they were cheating on taxes. From Vilna. So he sent them to Alter Rebbe, and Alter Rebbe told them the Torah Malchusa Da'ara came Malchusa de Rekia. What's the pirush that Alter Rebbe gave him? Thanks to pirush was Alter Rebbe gave him?
Exactly.
Yeah, but let's skip it because I realize that it's just the word itself. But fun to finish the story. So they went to they went to Petersburg, I guess. And over there, somehow they met the Sar HaChinuch, or the Minister of Culture. Yeah, the Minister of Culture. And, or maybe it was the Minister of Justice, who also, but the king, the Tsar, he was a mentor to the Tsar. And he told him that the Tsar asked him, and they explained him the Torah that the Alter Rebbe told him. I forgot what the Alter Rebbe said. Okay, even partially. So they told him, and the minister said, "Okay, I'll intercede on your behalf with the Tsar," or he was the justice minister, so he brought them out. But you see this idea that Malchus Da'ar came Malchus Derekia, and the other story really that I meant to say is when the king walked into the cell of the Alter Rebbe sensed it. He said that the moira, the fear that I felt when you walked into the cell was a me'ain of the moira that I feel from. So I'm saying, king, Begashmius represents Malchus Da'ar and Malchus Derekia. And Mazlayo Chazi, even though Begali they're demonstrating against one person, but the clip over here is demonstrating against the meaning of Amlucha of the Eibishter. There's no question about it. Back to what the Rebbe says.
So why we must say that
So what's the pshat? שהם נכתבים ונחתמים בכסיב וחסים הטבע, לשון הטבע ומסוכר בטבע הנראה והניגלה. This is the point. כסיב חסים not only ברוכניס. in טבע הנראה והניגלה למטה מעשר לפחם גם עניונים הגשמיים. How did we get to עניונים הגשמיים? מכיוון שמצד בחינה זו, this level that the Yidden reached, which is the same idea of Atan Nitzavim Hayom, Nitzav Melech, all of the Yidden together, this Achdus, that the Madeg of Tshuva of Yom Kippur brings about by Yidden, and later we also do it with the Daled Minim together. This is on the Kudah of Achdus that's L'mayla Me'is Chalkus. There's no, it's not limited to any sphere, to any place, not spiritually and not physically. We give it This Madeg that the Yidden reached during Tishrei, ain't Shaykh L'chalak Ben Ruchnis L'gashmis Ben Maila L'mata. It's not Shaykh to make a distinction between Ruchnius and Gashmius, between higher things and lower things, and therefore the question is flipped on its head. Why shouldn't it be Begashmius? We reached a place of Achos where there's no difference between Gashmius and Ruchnius. So of course the bracha is Nimshach Begashmius Eichet. And this Nekuda and then the Nekuda Vaitin in the Maimer is going to be very connected to the Maimer. The Eibishter will be a Smazaka to learn Mitzvah Hashem in 2 weeks from now. But there's no chiluk between Ruchnius and Gashmius, and therefore the whole Gashmius is taken over by all of these inyanim. Und das nimmt durch ist kol seder Einstahlschluss, v'gam mashala maila mi seder Einstahlschluss. It's all taken over by this Inyan of Achdus and by this Gilui of the Echad, and therefore it's not only good Beruchnius, it's good also there a Melech, and it's good also Begashmius. Okay, so over here the Rebbe explained this Inyan, that the key to this to the Hasbar of the Maimon is the Inyan that you have the Aved of Yom Kippur, which is the Echad B'Shana, like we said, from the Medrash, Yom Echad B'Shana, the Yom Kippur, that they all come to the Eibishter. So what's the Yom Echad B'Shana is the Maimon, the Matzav of Tshuva, the Aveda of Tshuva, and reaching a state, a condition of Tshuva. And this Tshuva brings out an Achdus, rather the Tshuva is born of Achdus, comes from the Nekudas Achdus in the Nefesh of the Yid, the Pnimius and the Atzmius of the Nefesh, and it reveals the Achdus in the entire world until and including the Gashmius of the world. So that's the idea of Yom Kippur. It's Achdus that's revealed until the Gashmius of the world. It's the Achdus that's reached by Tshuva, and it's brought in and revealed until this world, and it's an Eifin of Kiyum. It's an Eifin that it stays like the said in the beginning of this, and that's how we have the power to bring together the Daled Minim, the Daled types of Yidden, and that this bringing them together should be a Bar Kayama.
And Dafke, because it's the Gashmius, it has the power to go to the higher, even higher than the Gashmius. Like in the mind, Dafke being in this world. And
you learned already this, or this you remember from last year?
You learned it all.
You learned it already. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Thursday. We're going to learn it. But last week when we finished, I learned Thursday nights with my friends, the little potatoes. So when we finished last week's Maimer, we made a big announcement. Next of all, we're learning Maimer. Everybody should come. Over Al Kapanim, the Nekuda is that Over the Nekuda is that over here in this Maimer, he doesn't say it that way.
Right. But it must be connected also.
Of course, it's absolutely connected. But the question is, which point are you emphasizing? So over here, he's emphasizing. He's going to get to that point at the end of Hay. But not in the same way. But he makes that nekuda. Okay, so we understand now a certain mechanism. The mechanism is through Achdus, through the Aved of Tshuva, which brings out the Achdus. You can now have an Achdus Bar Kayama in all spheres, between all of the Yidden, and it's a Bar Kayama, and it's also in Gashmias. And that's this Hemshech of the Medrash, Yom Echad, of Yom Kippur, to the Yom Echad, to the Shmini Atzeres, to the Simchas Torah. And L'chura with this, the Rebbe doesn't explicitly answer the first question in the Maimer. So I'm saying it according to my Havana that L'chura, with this we already understand why in Simchas Torah every Yid dances with the Torah, and you dance after with a closed Torah, because on Simchas Torah the Yid is already after the Aved of Tshuva, or even a simple Yid. There's no distinction. It's they're all standing ke'echad. Even the because I don't know if someone's to go to the Gashmius, but it's every single Yid. Even a Yid who has no Shaychus to Havana Ba'asaga, he reached a much deeper place in his nefesh, where he's at Nekudas Achdus, and therefore we all dance equally with the Torah, even if somebody doesn't have Havana Ba'asaga. If we were before the Aved of Yom Kippur, we were still serving the Eibishter mitzad Havana Ba'asagas, then you'll say this Yid who has Havana Ba'asaga dances on Simchas Torah, this Yid who doesn't. But now we're after Echad B'Shana. We're after the Aved of Yom Kippur. We reached a much deeper place in the Yid, and now even a Yid who because of his chushim and because maybe of yesterday, of what he did yesterday, he's not yet shaykh to Havana v'Hasaga, but he reached a much deeper place, and therefore he could dance with the Torah also, because he brought out his essential connection with the Torah. It's at the echad shebenefesh that he's connected to the Torah also, and he dances with the Torah also. L'chura, that's the beer. Okay. Now the Rebbe finally brings it all together and connects it back to Simchas Torah, and he says that this is the Yom Echad where all the daughters of the king, back to the Mashal of the Medish, came to pay a visit to their father, the king. And the king says, Navid Kulon Chad Yom Tev V'nechdi Iman. The king says, let's make all of us together, all of the daughters together, all of the Yidden together, one Yom Tev, and let's rejoice together with them. Yom Echad Shabai Bo Kol Nishos Shlem HaMelech Avim Hu Yom Kippurim, which is the Achas Teshana V'gam Achas Te'elam With the Nefesh. And once you have this matzav of Achdus, so this automatically brings out a tremendous simcha, a day of simcha of the Yidden together with the Eibishter, and this is the day of Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe doesn't explain so much why from Yom Echad B'Shan L'chura. L'chura Daman is Pashut B'Pashtus, that once the Yidden reach this madrega of Echad, so B'derech Memela, a day of Simcha together with the Eibishter is automatically born from it. So from the Echad of Yom Kippur, you automatically come to a day of tremendous Simcha and Achdus with the Eibishter, and that's the idea of Simchas Torah. No, it reads well with that's how you would understand it. Okay. Okay, so we have already an Inyan Shalom in the Maimer, but now remember, this Maimer was said, Moshe, you were there. What is chus? What is chus? Whatever we say in the Shir over here, but by this it's also sach tiffer, we're starting given. Aber then good. What's it? Starting given. Okay, then now this is, since we said this is a Maimer that was said, Simchas Torah. So this Maimer
said from the room.
It was said from the room, correct. So this man was said Simchas Torah. So the Rebbe is emphasizing.
My father was in the
So he had the hookup. He was able to hear the Simchas Torah.
He used to wake up in the middle of the night that year. I think when the Shidur. It was a Shidur.
Yeah.
Shidur.
Yeah. So
4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So we have like this. This man was said Simchas Torah. Right. So the Rebbe is putting the emphasis on how you close the door, how you leave the meeting. You don't close the door, but how you leave the meeting like a mensch, like a normal person. In other words, how do you take Simchas Torah to the whole year? That's the emphasis of the Rebbe over here to the end of the Maimer. And to make this point, the Rebbe makes in a way, a new point. And this is again connected to the Maimer of Mem Zayin that we learned Erev Rosh Hashanah, just before Rosh Hashanah. That this is Eilus of Achas. It's not good enough that it remains L'mayla Mischalkus, but like the Rebbe said just before on the top of this page, and like we learned in the other Maimer, it has to be brought also into the Hischalkus. In other words, there's a place in the person where there's one Nekuda. When am I a Yid? And this place, sometimes the Yid could feel it on Shabbos, the Yid could feel it on Yom Tov, Tishrei, v'chulu. But then the Yid has to go into his whole Hischalkus. Here is at work, here is at shul, here is in the base medish, here is with his children, he's with the Inyan Tziburi, with the Askanus, he's and never mind that here he has to deal pasuk mit gashmis begashmis te kenyonim b'chol dekom b'chol. So it says the kunz is, and the absolute requirement is to bring this nekuda of achdus into the ischalkos. What's the pshat to bring it into the ischalkos? Whereas before, during the ischalkos, maybe the yid felt when he's at work, he felt now I'm at work. Yeah, like the famous kfira of the Haskalah movement, or of those who were influenced by the Haskalah movement, is a Jew in your home and a guy outside. Yeah, so you want to wear a yarmulke beseder. When you go outside, it's chalkos. Yeah, so it's that's how they teach derech eretz kadmon l'teira. Verstehst? Anyways, so it has to be brought into his chalkos. So bedukas mashay yisrael is tzvichel is kshur b'asiyah gashmis. So come b'asiyah the yeshiva b'sukun until the stam minim. He could be raglayim, just like the yisrael is of Yom Kippur has to be brought into a gashmistic asiyah, that the yisrael of Yom Kippur has to then be brought into the gashmistic act of sitting in the sukkah, and the gashmistic act of taking the daled minim, and the gashmistic act of pasha dancing with gashmistic feet. So too the yid has to take this nikuda achas of the nefesh and bring it into his hischalkus, bring it into everything that he does that he doesn't feel anymore. That over here he's one person, over here he's another thing, and everything that does, even though he's doing completely different things, he feels one nikud of achdas in it. I'm serving the Eibishter. In everything that I'm doing, I'm not doing different things. In everything that I don't feel that now I'm an accountant. and now I'm a Yid davening, and now I'm a Talmud Chacham, and now I'm a Baal Tzedakah. He doesn't feel that. That's not his feeling inside. And now I'm a father, and now I'm taking out the garbage, and v'chulu v'chulu. No, in all of it, he feels I'm a Yid. Happens to be that right now I'm taking out the garbage, but what does he feel as he's taking out the garbage? He said to Bill Khan once, his wife asked him to take out the garbage. He got the 770 with the garbage bags. But Al Kapanim, he feels in all of it, he doesn't feel his chalkos. He doesn't feel separate things. The Poel is doing separate things, but what does he feel in all of it? He feels in the Kuda Achas of the Nefesh, he feels that he's a Yid who's absolutely and completely one with the Eibishter and serving the Eibishter in everything that he does. And that's why Taka, and again, we referenced this in the Maimer before Rosh Hashanah, after the Pasuk says, Atam Nitzavim Kulchem, all of you are together in Achdus, the Pasuk then continues into his Chalkus. Why? If the Nekuda is Kulchem, then why is trying to mention that there are separations? It's like the happiest moment of a person. Come over to him and tell him, you remember when that happened? so what are you mentioning over here? The details. Because Rebbe says, what's the emes inyan of Achdus? Okay, that's a different story, what the emes inyan of Achdus is. But Rebbe says the nekuda of Achdus is that it should be drawn down into these chalkas. Shekol Yisrael be'efen de kulchem. All of the Eden are in the efen of kulchem. It's at b'china achas shebehem. Meine acher kach kol ha'eser sugim bepratius. Meir ha'shechem shiftechem archeita v'etzacha v'shev mimecha. Why? What's the Inyan? Because Hainu she'inin de kulchem b'china achas tiso tzarech liyas nikir has to be recognizable, has to be seen. Even when you end up having this Yid who does this and that Yid who does this, the Hergish by all of the Yidden together has to be that they're that they're all one. They're one thing. They're all like one Metzias, not separate people. And here the Rebbe really draws it into the rest of the year. Beautiful Asius. And just like it is in the Hergish of the person, in his Aveda Ruchnis, in his the Aveda of his nefesh, in his matzav of his nefesh, also in the second thing that defines the world, that also in the year in Zman, it's Poel and firt on. You heard these words, Mom. So this is Mam's lesson of the Rebbe. Firt on mit Ali Yemei Hashana Maschel Yisruchag. Starting already immediately from Yisruchag, also the lesson of the Rebbe. Shebechol Plati Asiyesa. Then in all of the details of what he does, in other words, he's going into the year. He's no longer busy with Kedusha his whole day. When he's busy with this world, it's recognized as that is you look at the Yid, you could see this is a Yid that just yesterday came from Yom Kippur and from Simchas Torah. And it's a Bar Kiyama. It continues the entire year. Even though several days, weeks, and months already passed from Yom Kippur and Simchas Torah, Afal became the Yisraelis of Yom Echad, of standing in this matzav of an Echad in everything, because it's all connected to the Eibishter, is not weakened at all. But Tokfa Emed stands with the same strength. Because this is not an achdus, an ufgemachte achdus. This is not an achdus that was forced. It's not an achdus that was accomplished. Rather, it came from an achdus that's higher than having this idea of separation in the first place. From this level of achdus that the Yid reaches in Tishrei, specifically in Yom Kippur and Simchas Torah, he reaches a level of achdus that's beyond the idea of separation in the first place, and therefore there's no reason why it should change throughout the year. It's the bechina of ani havar leishanisi, the level of achdus by the Eibishter, where even after the world was created, you still say ani Hashem leishanisi, because it's a level of achdus that cannot be affected by anything that's beyond any details, that's beyond being affected. When it comes to the Medegas of Mamale, so then over there you could say, Vadim is given Welt, it was true achdus, noch Welt, Hashem nicht sehr viel achdus. But when Mechinas Makif Talter Rebbe explains, it's ani havar leishanisi, because it's l'mayla mischalkos b'chlal. So too by the Yid, this nekuda of echad that he reaches through the Aveda of Yom Kippur and then Simchas Torah is a nekuda of echad that's l'mayla mischalkos, and therefore the changes of time and seasons and times of year has and pashat, the passage of a lot of time, has no effect on it, because it's beyond having in it any differences and any separation. And now finally come back to the nekuda that you made before. Through this, that this Yom Echad, which is higher than his chalkos, the Yid draws it into each and every day of the year, which is full of shinuyim, which is full of changes. We bring about an ilui also in the Madrega of Echad. Al derech mashnas by leil bin pri etz hadar asher leirak shu sevel kol shnei avim el shu gadol lehem. Al derech, when we explain when we get to the esig, that even though the esig represents the echad, but nevertheless it actually benefits through this, that it lives through the shinuyim and the ischalkus of the 4 different seasons. It grows from each one of them. So through the achdus of the esig being present throughout the 4 different seasons, the achdus of the esig is actually brought to a higher level. So the first Nekuda Aveda we have over here in this Maimer is this beautiful lashon of the Rebbe, that even days and weeks and months after Yom Kippur and Simchas Torah is nikir as is ot esh kakuman miyay mechadim kol Simchas Torah. You look at the Yid, you say, wow, you just came from Simchas Torah. Inyan. How nice would I like to be if we could do that? The Rebbe says we could. We're going to get to that in Zion, that you could do it. V'hiratzin, the Rebbe says, shekol yiratzin, maybe the Eibishter's will. Shekol anali skayim kol echad v'achas p'seichei klal yisrael. That all of the above should be fulfilled amongst every single Yid, by every single Yid amongst all of the Yidden together. Sheti yashana teva muvarechas b'teva nira v'hanigla. That should be a good yard and a gebenchte yard in a revealed way. Lamata masar fachim, pashat down here and all the way down in this world. V'bani chayim ezayna b'kulam revichi. Sign with children, sign with health and life, and sign with parnasa, and in all of them should be in an abundant way. Remember the Nekud of Achdus, that Sai Beruchnis and Sai Begashmis, that has no limitations. Sai Banichayim Zuni Begashmis. The Hein Banichayim Zuni Beruchni is from Hemish Tauslim and Yonim Kipshutam. Hashem Etech Simcha V'tuv Levo, that with coming in an aphan of joy and goodness of heart, gladness of heart. Should be immediately after Simchas Torah, the Aveda going into the Shinuyim, into the Aveda of Kol Matzach L'Shishmam Kol Derech Echadeu. Gam Benegel in Yoneh Rishus. Also, when it comes to the Yid going into the Hischalkus, he should go with this matzav, with this being at the level of Achdus. He should bring it also into his Yoneh Rishus. Because this, that you have Yaakov al-Darke already after Yom Kippur. Darke over here is mitzvahs. In other words, you're leaving the shul and the separation from the world completely. You don't even eat on the day of Yom Kippur, and now you're going to do mitzvahs, right? Because they're busy with the mitzvahs of Sukkah and Lulav and Esek. So it's a Darke, but it's not Mamash Darke into Gashmis. When the Yaakov Halach L'Darke, it's Pashat in Yoneh Rishus, and we're starting now in Pashas Neach. I think it's in Nun Beis that the Rebbe says, well, upon the summer, the Rebbe says that the Yaakov Halach L'Darke that's after Shabbos Pashas Bereishis is even more than the Yaakov Halach L'Darke that's after Simchas Torah, because the Yaakov Halach L'Darke that's after Simchas Torah is never a complete week of Uvdin Dechel. It's always a week that part of the week is Simchas Torah. Yaakov Halach L'Darke, we have a complete week of Uvdin Dechel, of Inyan Rishus, is Dafka in the week that we're learning this Maimer, which is Shabbos, which is the week of Pashas Neach. So it should be a Yaakov Halach L'Darke also in Inyan Rishus with a Simcha and a Tuv Levav and a Bracha in it. And it should do it in a way that every single day, sigh in the days of the week and sigh and certainly on Shabbos and Yom Tov, which I don't quite see how this runs together. About Kwan Rebbe says, including also Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Zainen durchgenommen kolin Yonov. All of the Yids in Yonim are permeated; they're completely taken through and through. Hein in Yonim haklalim, sai things that he's doing for in Yonim klalim, which is already, in other words, in Yonim of serving the Eibishter. Hein in Yonim hapratim, including his personal things, are also things of serving the Eibishter. They're all durchgenommen benekuda ha'ikis v'hapnimis to pnimis v'atzmas haneshama. They're all permeated and completely soaked and taken over with the pnimis and the atzmas of his neshama, shehik shura b'pnimis v'atzmas ein sof baruch hu, which the pnimis and the atzmas of the neshama of a yid is connected and attached to the pnimis and the atzmas of ein sof baruch hu. Which this is again something in Mr. Shem we'll get to in next Maimer Mr. Shem that we will learn. But the nekuda is that this nekuda of echad b'nefesh that we mentioned earlier in the Maimer, that the yid reaches to the Aveda of Tshuva and Yom Kippur, like the Rebbe already mentioned, comes from the atzmas of his neshama. And this nekuda is then brought out with a tremendous simcha in Simchas Torah, and then through that it's brought out into the entire year. That everything that he does, the entire year is driven and is animated by the pnimius and the atzmas of his neshama, which is completely kosher, which is one with the pnimius and the atzmas of the Eibishter. Okay, This is a whole sugya. In a way, it's a whole maimer, and we'll get to it. This line and a half, that everything that he does is durchgenommen with the primis and aspects of his neshama, which is kosher with the primis and aspects of Ein Sof. That's the way that he does his way. But he doesn't learn Torah because it's nice to learn Torah. It stays like David talks about the Rebbe ben Zakkai. When Rebbe ben Zakkai passed away, he wasn't sure if he was going to Gehenna or to Gan Eden. David says, why? Rebbe ben Zakkai was clear-eyed. He knew exactly what he accomplished. But he said, if everything that I accomplished is because I like to be Rebbe ben Zakkai, not because I'm serving the Eibster, I'm going to Gehenna. All of his Torah that he learned himself, that he taught his leadership of the whole generation, is that Tzala of Yiddishkeit after and during the Churban. Doing all of that, Rebbe ben Zakkai says, if I did it because I like to be Rebbe ben Zakkai, I'm going to Gehenna. Verstehst? So they were saying that it shouldn't be because I like to read Rebbe ben Zakkai. It shouldn't be because I want Gan Eden. It shouldn't be because Torah is Pashat Zis. Those are all good things, but the Rebbe ben Zakkai says no. It should be because of the Nekuda Pnimis and Atzvos of the Neshama, which is one with the Eibster. In other words, he does everything because he's connected to the Eibster. He's connected to the Eibster. These are the Eibster's in Yonim. There he is. No reason whatsoever. That's how a Yid Aveda throughout his entire year should look. Because that's the second Nekuda in Aveda in the Maimer. And now, but a Yid could say to himself, how in the world am I going to pull this off? So all's good and fine, but how am I going to pull it off? So the Rebbe says it's very pashut. It's very, very pashut, says the Rebbe.
Simcha.
Yep. Since this type of Aveda, where his entire year is permeated, and his Gashmistic things are permeated fully with his Etzem and Neshama, where does it come from? What gives birth to it? What brings it? What makes it happen? It's Simchas Torah. And Simchas Torah is a Simcha. Simcha Peretzes Kol HaGedolim. Simcha has in it the unique power that it is able to break through all boundaries, beyond limitation. It is a Peretz Mevatel Kol HaGedolim B'Hagbalas to Golus Apnimi. It breaks apart and tears down all of the definitions and all of the limitations of a Golus Pnimi. In other words, you can have a Yid. What's the problem? Like they said when you get to Mashiach in the famous Chav Ches Nissen Sicha, we're in a Golus Pnimi. So Yid says, I'm in a Golus Pnimi. Everything that it says in the Maimon is true. There's no problem with what's in the Maimon. There's a problem with me. I'm in a Golus Pnimi. How could I do this? Aveda says the Rebbe Pashat Zay Freilach. Zay Freilach. And that's all you need. Aber an Emes Freilichkeit. Yeah. We're running a little long, but this story is worth it. The story is worth it. Okay. So when Mendel Futterfass and Moshe Veshetsky were both in prison together, not in Siberia, Pashat in a jail, and nobody knew then who you're in prison with, but somehow Mendel found out that Moshe Veshetsky was in the same floor, in the same, not only in the same compound, in the same row of cells that he was in.
Gem, right? Sorry?
I didn't see it in Gem, but the Gem got it from somewhere else. So the Gem I said.
No, I mean, but it's the Bishop Veshetsky talking.
Okay.
He says he was
That's his. Let me talk in the Maisa. And Mendel understood that Moshe wasn't in a good matziv. He needed encouragement. So to relieve yourself in those cells, there was a hole that was connected to pipes, but there was no water in it. So if you scream into a pipe, you could hear it in the other cells. Mendel was a Chaverman. He probably got this advice from some old hands in the jail. So what are you going to tell your fellow chassid? You can't tell him a different maimer. The Simon said where the message is going through him. Simon said the time and the place. Haskalah is not going to work over here. So Mendel screams to him through the thing. He says, "Meisha bist freilach." Mendel was very smart. He was very pikach. He had life smarts, tremendous life smarts, more than anything else. And you see, how could I pick him up? He screams to him, "Meisha bist freilach." I don't know things. Aber Lechora came in sagen that he was reminding the Moshe that the husband was to sein freilach. And that even though begashmis, these people have you locked up and they're torturing you and you're not feeling well, I think the Moshe was Pasha not feeling well, in addition to everything else, he was Pasha not feeling well begashmis. You stand way beyond them. They're nothing. They don't come, not even, you can't even say that they don't come to your heels. And he was reminding him of that. And how? Through Simcha. This freilach. Through Simcha, Reb Mendel knew that Moshe will be able to overcome the terrible situation that he was put in. So a Simcha is Pasha, so a Yid could be in a Golus Pnimi, just like these Chassidim were Pasha in a Golus Begashmias. they were in a prison cell mamish. Mendel knew that with Simcha, both he and Moshe will be able to lift themselves beyond and not be limited by the physical limitations that were on them. It's a beer, and what Deb is saying over here in the Maimon, that through the Simcha of Simchas Torah, it's paid its all the Gdom, and even though a Yid is in a Golus Pnimi, still he could hold on to this Nekuda of Echad throughout his entire year through Simcha. And actually, Simcha also has in it the power to break through the barriers and the boundaries of Golus, literally. Like the teaches, this is in a different Simcha. We should see with our own eyes the coming of Mashiach. Yahweh, may He come and lead us, standing upright to Eretz Yisrael, even a Beis Hamikdash, and there He will build a Beis Hamikdash, and He will gather in all of the exiles of the Yidden. And not only will all the Yidden serve the Eibster at that time, but it's an Inyan of Achdus and unlimited Achdus, and Achdus that reaches everywhere, like we discussed in this manner. So the going also, He will turn to all of the nations of the world with a clear voice. And He will bring about that they should all love that they should all serve the Eibster together, standing side by side. And the Eibster will have the kingdom over the entire world. To make maybe a summary of to string it all together, what the Rebbe is saying is that during Tishrei, how are we going forward from Tishrei without closing the door like a Meshuggah? The Rebbe says that in Tishrei we have the Aved of Yom Kippur. In Yom Kippur we bring up the Nekuda Achas Shebenefesh, the deepest part of the Yid, where he stands beyond not only limitations to Nefesh Bamis, he stands beyond the limitations of Nefesh Elokis also. It's an Achdus that is unlimited, that is undefined by any Madrega. And it also, since it's undefined by anything and it's beyond differences in the first place, so therefore it even reaches Begashmis. When a Yid is in that matzav, that automatically brings out a Simchas Torah, a Yom Tov Chad that the Eibishter makes with the Yid, with this tremendous Simchas Torah. And then what happens? After that time, the Yid says, okay, I need to now bring this Achdus of Yom Kippur into the entire year. And how does the Yid have the power to actually bring this Achdus of Yom Kippur into the entire year? Again, that's done through the follow-on Yom Tov, through the Yom Tov of Simchas Torah, through the Simcha of Simchas Torah. The Yid has the ability to not be stuck in his own galus and to bring the Side Yom Kippur and Side Simchas Torah into every single moment of his day-to-day life throughout the entire year. And this will bring Mashiach. May we be zeicha to Mashiach b'meir of Yameinu Mamash.